Hello, my name is Anuska and welcome to my channel. And on today's video, I want to talk all about jaw tension and how, if we start to release our jaw, we can really start to free our voice. And this is so important as a speaker. It's also going to really influence your ability to articulate clearly, effortlessly, and powerfully. So I hope you're going to get a lot from this video. We're going to talk a little bit, first of all, about the sort of anatomy of the jaw, looking at the bones and the muscles, because I think that's really important to get a sense of what we're dealing with. And then I'm going to share with you some exercises you can do to start to release the muscles of the jaw, and then how you can then take that into everyday speaking. So jaw tension is incredibly common, and I include myself in this too. It's something I have to work on all the time. Many people speak with a very kind of close or clenched jaw. Sometimes they have absolutely no idea until they start maybe working with me and I start to get them to open their jaw and they're like, oh, that actually doesn't feel good, or it feels weird. So it's something that you may be aware that you experience, or you may have absolutely no idea. But I think most people have some level of jaw tension, whether they're aware of it or not, just by the nature of some of the muscles in the jaw. So just as a little exercise to start with, look at yourself in the mirror and just speak. I know you might think that's a bit crazy to do that, but just have a look and start to pay attention to how much does your jaw move? Is there any kind of gap between your teeth when you speak, or do you speak like this? Because again, you may never have actually noticed it before. Other ways you might know that you have jaw tension: your jaw perhaps clicks or cracks when you yawn. You know that you grind your teeth at night. Perhaps when you're at the dentist and you have to kind of hold your jaw open for extended periods of time, you may find that your jaw starts to ache. Or even just you notice when you move your jaw a little bit more than normal, perhaps it just doesn't feel particularly comfortable, or it feels a little bit achy or tight. So there's some ways that you would know that there is some tension in your jaw. But we can also hear it in the voice. I mean, you may not necessarily hear it in your own voice, and there's obviously other factors too. But if I talk like this, my voice doesn't come out. It's quite muffled, it's quite rumbled, I can't really articulate very well. It's going to impact the dynamics of the voice, the power we can get in the voice. So there's many other ways that we can start to kind of notice the impact of the lack of movement of our jaw. Now, before I go on, I just want to preface all of this by saying, please go and get checked out by your doctor or your dentist if it's something that perhaps your jaw clicks all the time or cracks all the time. It could be something more than just jaw tension, and I'm not a doctor, so please go and get that checked out, because this video is all about releasing the muscles of the jaw. But if it's something more serious than that, then it's, you need to go and get it checked out. So let's look at quickly a little bit of anatomy of the jaw. I think this is really useful to get a sense of what you're actually dealing with, because the jaw is so much more than probably what you think it is. Certainly when I started studying this and teaching this, it was a lot more vast than I ever realized. So the jaw is comprised of two bones. So the upper jaw is the maxilla, and the lower jaw, this one here, is the mandible. Now the maxilla, the upper jaw, is actually fused to our skull, so it doesn't move. It's actually only the lower jaw that moves, and it moves on a hinge, which is called the TMJ, and you may have heard of TMJ before. Now, for the purposes of this video, we can think about jaw movement in terms of rotation and translation. Now, rotation is basically the jaw dropping, and that would be roughly sort of 1 to 2 fingers depth, depending on the person. So for me, now anything past that, it goes into translation, which basically means the lower jaw slides forward. Now for speech, or singing actually, but we're talking about speech here, we don't want the jaw to go past that rotation range. And that's, as I say, think 1 to 2 fingers depth. So when I work with clients, I often get them to put their fingers in their mouth so they can make sure the jaw is dropping a little bit, but it's not overextending either. So if you actually put your fingers, so this is where the TMJ is, so in front of the ear, there's almost like a slight indentation here, and you might have to feel around a little bit. It's kind of bony, it's like a little hollow with like bones around it. Put your fingers in there and then just start to drop your jaw. Now, when you go into that translation range, you'll feel that hollow kind of disappears and it gets really lumpy and bony. So you want to stay in that sort of softer part versus when you go too deep in the drop and then we're going into that translation, which we don't want. But I think for most people, certainly people that I work with, they're not really dropping their jaw at all. So even if you can drop it slightly, that's going to make such a difference to how your voice can actually come out. Now, in terms of muscles, there's a lot going on in the jaw. So we have the temporalis, which is the muscles around the temple area, so behind the eyes here. We also have the masseter, which is maybe the one you're most familiar with, which is this one here that kind of bulges out. If we clench our teeth together, we'll feel a bulge. That's the masseter. Now, that's main role is for chewing and grinding food. And it's actually the strongest muscle in the body by weight, which is why for most of us, we hold a lot of tension because these muscles get very tight and are overactive. And so because these muscles get tight and overactive, they lose that length, they lose that elasticity, and then jaw tension just becomes inevitable. Now, but also the other interesting thing, so you can think about these muscles, first of all, is it's kind of like a big fan. I mean, they're just sort of all under the cheekbones, all kind of here. But also with the jaw, we have muscles under the chin. And this is the digastric area. It's also sometimes known as the diaphragm of the jaw. So it's right under here. The muscles under here are actually connected to the hyoid bone, which is connected to the larynx or the voice box. So we've got that, now we've got that link between the jaw and the voice. It's indirect, it's via the hyoid bone, but there's still a connection. The other thing about the muscles under here is they will also tighten the throat. So if you hold a lot of tension in your throat, which we often do when we're nervous or stressed, that will also impact the jaw. Now, I did a whole video on throat tension, so I will post that link below. So do check that out. If you know that your throat kind of can get quite tense, working on the throat and the jaw is really important. And the muscles under here are really responsible for depressing and opening the jaw. So we've got the ones here that are really for sort of grinding and chewing, and these are the ones that kind of open and depress the jaw. So coupled with all of this that we've talked about, our jaw is also somewhere where we hold a lot of emotion, particularly stress, anxiety, anger, rage, what we would consider to be quite difficult or dark emotions. They tend to be held in our jaw. And actually, we also know there's a link between the jaw and the hips. And we also know that about the hips, that we hold a lot of emotion in our hips too. So if we have been conditioned to perhaps not feel safe to express ourselves, or we feel it's not acceptable for us to say certain things, it's going to go into the jaw and it's going to really shut our jaw down. And as children, we are very expressive. We scream, we cry, we shout. We don't have a problem kind of moving our jaw and getting it all out. But as we enter into sort of teenage years, adulthood, that's when the jaw really starts to almost sort of imprison the voice. So we want to look at not only releasing the jaw, but also perhaps going a little bit deeper. Why might I fear opening my jaw? Because for many people, opening the jaw is incredibly vulnerable. and it's really exposing. I mean, in literally and figuratively. So we want to sort of look more deeply at the emotional side of it too, so that we can really allow our jaw to open and allow our voice to come out. So let's start with a little bit of jaw awareness. And first of all, let your teeth just touch together. So you're not gripping, but you are holding them together. And I want you to just speak for about 30 seconds. So if I talk like this, I'll talk for about 30 seconds like this. So I'm just gently holding my teeth together, but I'm not doing anything particularly crazy in terms of clamping them together. Now, allow the jaw to drop maybe 1 to 2 fingers, and now speak. And notice the difference. I mean, it's almost immediate for me anyway, because I find it very hard to do that. Notice the difference. How much freer and easier does your voice feel? Do you notice there's more resonance, there's more power, there's more articulation? Now, I'm not saying that you necessarily talk like this, but a lot of people are more on that end of jaw openness than the sort of free end of jaw openness. So it's a really good exercise, first of all, to notice what an impact the jaw really makes on our voice. Now, as we've already established, there are muscles under here, jaw muscles under here, that are indirectly connected to our larynx. So by releasing some of these muscles, we can really start to free and open the voice. So let's look at some simple release exercises now you can do. And we're going to go through those main muscle areas that I've already talked about. So let's start with the TMJ, which is what we've already mentioned. So this is just in front of the ears. You'll feel that little indentation, that little kind of groove, and just give yourself a little massage for about 10 seconds. And you can go in both directions. Just make sure when you're doing this, you're not clenching your jaw is just soft. And so that's a good place to start. The next one is the masseter, so this one here. So if you clench your teeth together, you'll feel that bulge, then unclench your teeth, and that's where you want to be. And again, you can just make sure the jaw is soft and go in both directions. You may find also that one side is a bit more tender than the other as well. I know I have one side that is much tighter than the other. The temporalis is the next area. So this is the area here behind the eyes. Again, there's a slight kind of indentation there. So you can give yourself a nice gentle circular massage here as well, and go in both directions. I mean, you can spend longer than 10 seconds, but I'm just saying as a starting point, perhaps spend 10 seconds on each area. Unless it's something, you know, you want to spend more time on, that's absolutely fine. Then, because, as I said, the jaw muscles kind of fan all down here under the cheeks. So get the heels of your hands, stick them under your cheekbones, and then you're going to almost smooth the bottom jaw away from the top jaw. So it's a bit like this. It's really attractive, but it feels really, really nice. So you can do that maybe 3 times. You can do it really slowly. Just take your time. If you want to do it longer, obviously do it longer. Next one is under the cheekbones. So these muscles, I think for many of us, I know when I've had a facial and they go under the cheekbones, it can get really tender, these jaw muscles under here. So we can just massage under the cheekbones. Again, just make sure that you're not gripping through the jaw as you do this. Try and keep the jaw soft. I find this, for me, really tender under the cheekbones. And again, 10 seconds, but do it longer if you feel you need to. And then finally, one more muscle that we talked about, which are the muscles under the jaw. You can give them a massage too. So if you get your hands and you put them on your face and then you put your thumbs underneath here, you'll probably feel it's a bit tight under there. And then just give yourself a bit of a massage. Under here, because this gets so tight in so many of us. There's a lot going on under the jaw. We've also got the tongue muscles too. So it does get particularly tight, but we're just talking about the jaw here. So just to recap then, it was the TMJ, the temporalis, the masseter, then just smoothing out the top jaw from the bottom jaw, under the cheekbones, and then these muscles under the jaw. So they're the points that you want to try and cover. Even if you do 10 seconds for each, you will notice a big difference. And then just finally, now you've kind of started to release some of these muscles. Now just open the jaw and just see if it feels a little bit freer. It does for me. It's actually quite nice. Just open and close the jaw, making sure you're not going into that translation, you're not jutting the chin forward, and just see if it feels a little bit easier. Again, another great thing is kind of heat for this area too. So just to kind of help to sort of release the muscles a little bit more, but play around with this as much or as little as you need to. So then when you have done some release work on the jaw, the next stage is then trying to bring more of this into your speech. And hopefully you notice with the initial exercise that actually when you drop your jaw slightly, your voice just works better. It sounds clearer, it sounds more powerful. It's just going to feel better as well as sound better. So first thing you can do, and you might want to get a paragraph from a book or a presentation or something, is and it depends, it's really up to you, but at least 1 finger depth. But you can try 2 fingers too, as long as your jaw's not moving forward. And then just practice reading something. Now, make sure you move your lips when you do this, so you're not going like that. So make sure you move your lips and just practice reading something so you can get used to this sort of depth for the jaw, particularly if you're not used to moving your jaw. Then take your finger out and see if you can access that depth of the jaw when you speak. Now, I just want to say, it's not that you stay at 1 finger depth. The jaw is going to move, but what we are avoiding is a closed jaw, a clenched jaw, or a gripped jaw. So it's going to move up and down as we speak, and hopefully to that depth of 1 to 2 fingers, but it's going to kind of open and close. It's not going to stay open, otherwise that would be really weird. So I hope that's really helped. There's quite a lot here, and there's so many different exercises I could have given you, but I've just cherry picked a few for the key muscles that we want to work with. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please do post them below. If not, I will see you on my next video.